I hope will be the last of the pressers for this tropical storm system. And in the interest of speeding that along, I'm going to invite immediately to the podium our minister, Minister Lundy, who will give remarks wrapping up on our response to Tropical Storm Imelda.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have now received our official all clear for all islands of the Bahamas. Tropical Storm Imelda came and the Bahamas stood tall. There was no loss of life and no serious injuries, which above all else is the greatest victory. This storm was one of disruption, not destruction. And because of our preparation, coordination, and the resilience of our people, the Bahamas prevailed. From the very first advisory, our systems were mobilized. Since Saturday morning, the National Disaster Emergency Operations Center and every island command center have been fully activated, working around the clock. I want to extend heartfelt thanks to the NDEOC team, the emergency support functions, our uniformed forces, Family Island administrators, disaster risk management committees, and all of our partners, public and private, for their dedication and service. Our response was coordinated and comprehensive. On power, as BPL reported during last night's update, widespread outages occurred, but their crews are on the ground and on the move, working tirelessly, and they will not rest until service to every family and every home is restored. On flooding, as predicted by the Met Department, that would have been our greatest hazard. We experienced, and yet, thanks to the Ministry of Works' proactive drain cleaning program, the waters did not rise as high as they have in storms past. Today, pumps are on the field, debris is being cleared, and water levels are already receding. Later today, we will be in communities around New Providence assessing flood impacts, and these assessments will begin on the Family Islands later this week. On evacuations and sheltering, in East Grand Bahama, more than 100 residents, including 47 from Sweetings Key, relocated swiftly and safely to higher ground. Shelter use peaked at about 100 in Central Abaco and nearly 50 in Grand Bahama, with smaller numbers in Eleuthera, New Providence, and Andros. I commend these residents for their compliance, and their cooperation is proof that when we act early, we indeed save lives. Since this disturbance developed, I and the Disaster Risk Management Authority have been briefing the Prime Minister and Cabinet twice daily, while also ensuring that the opposition received daily updates. At every level of leadership, we stayed united, informed, and action-oriented. Our Family Island administrators reported to us 2 or more times each day, keeping us connected to the conditions on the ground. We pre-tested satellite phones and had redundancies in place, ensuring no island stood alone during these times. Moments like these are when we invest in readiness. Earlier this year, we conducted regional disaster readiness exercises in Cat Island, South Andros, Abaco, Exuma, and Inagua. Imelda was the test, and those exercises paid off. The disaster alerts you received on your phones are another example of strengthened early warning systems, putting life-saving information directly into the hands of Bahamians when it mattered the most. Finally, I must thank the media. Throughout this storm, you have carried vital information into homes across the nation, ensuring that Bahamians stayed informed, calm, and safe. My friends, Imelda has reminded us that storms will come, but so too will preparation, resilience, and unity. The Bahamas is not fragile. It is fortified. The Bahamas is no stranger to storms, but we are stronger than every storm that comes our way. Let us remember this truth. The measure of success in any storm is not the strength of the winds, but the safety of our people. By that measure, the Bahamas has succeeded. Together, we faced Imelda. Together, we endured. And together, we will always rise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for those words of encouragement. I will now hand the mic over to our Managing Director, Aaron Sargent, who will bring greater details of the situation on the ground in the islands and our steps going forward.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Minister, Executive Chair, members of our Disaster Operations Division, Head of Communications, Shantaz Dillard Wilson. Tropical Storm Imelda has moved north of the Bahamas, as we know. While we are grateful that it did not escalate into a hurricane, it did have broad effects across the archipelago, moving steadily up the chain of islands and impacting communities from New Providence through Abaco and Grand Bahama. The storm allowed us to test several of our upgraded disaster management systems and protocols in real time. The National Disaster Alert System, which Minister spoke about, sent several warnings directly to mobile phones and proved effective in reaching residents quickly. One particular moment occurred in the Abaco community at around 3 a.m. when we were advised in the NDEOC by the Met Office that Imelda had shifted course, which was slated now to impact low-lying areas in Abaco. We were able, and we are grateful for the work of Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Shivago Dames, and Commissioner Shanta Knowles for allowing us a space on that platform for us to develop the National Disaster Alert System. We were able to reach residents at 5 a.m., advising them to seek higher ground if necessary, if their houses or homes or residents are compromised. We are pleased with how it performed. We already are working on enhancements. We have received some feedback, and while we are in the infancy stages, we will work to enhance that, which will include the ability to geographically target the alerts for greater precision. Imelda also gave us a chance to test our evacuation protocols. We are proud to report that the evacuation orders, which have now expired, was followed with exemplary compliance, particularly in East Grand Bahama and Abaco. Over 100 residents safely relocated in or from East Grand Bahama, and more than 170 persons sought shelter in Abaco at the height of the storm. This level of cooperation from the public is a testament to how proactive measures paired with public trust can save lives. In total, 225 persons sheltered across Abaco and Grand Bahama, while smaller numbers were accommodated in Eleuthera, New Providence, and Andros. The National Disaster Emergency Operations Center and Family Island Incident Command Centers were fully activated since Saturday morning and worked tirelessly around the clock with our partner agencies. We had several rescue requests which were met promptly through the collaboration with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, who leads our search and rescue emergency support function. 4 persons were rescued in Yellow Elder, 3 families in Pinewood were assisted, and a family in Ridgeland Park were reached but declined evacuation after assistance and after requesting further assistance with removing the water from their residence. Shelter operations ran smoothly and are already being wound down in New Providence, Andros, and Grand Bahama, where people are being requested to return, or shelteries are being requested to return home. These outcomes are a result of proactive planning, rehearsed coordination, as Minister alluded to, with the regional disaster readiness exercises that we have expanded this year, and strong interagency teamwork. Again, shout out to the Department of Social Services and their team who assisted us around the clock in the National Disaster Emergency Operations Center. Abaco and Grand Bahama were the last islands to remain under tropical storm warning. In Abaco, flooding was observed along Don McKay Boulevard and Forest Drive, with island-wide power outages that forced the Marsh Harbor Clinic to operate in emergency mode. Shelters in Abaco, including the Central Abaco Primary, which sheltered around 50 persons, Moores Island Primary School sheltered 10 persons, remained open until conditions stabilized. In Grand Bahama, shelters such as Maurice Moore Primary sheltered 21 persons, St. George's High sheltered 19 persons, Christ the King Auditorium 5 persons, and 8 Mile Rock High School 5 persons. They continued to house displaced residents. Both islands experienced extended power disruptions, but BPL restorations and efforts are ongoing. Power outages were the most widespread disruption, affecting parts of Abaco, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama, New Providence, and Cat Island. As we heard yesterday evening at the press briefing, BPL COO Christie provided a detailed statement on this yesterday, which I will provide a short summary. The majority of customers who lost power had service restored within or under 24 hours. In Abaco, outages were severe, Outages were severe following a cable burnout by yesterday evening, about 50% of consumers had power restored with targeted work ongoing. In New Providence, most major neighborhoods were restored quickly with crews addressing the small remaining pockets. In Eleuthera, most of the island had been restored with only a few small areas still affected. Airports across the impacted islands experienced temporary closures during the peak impact. In Eleuthera, Northern Eleuthera, Roxanne, and Governor's Harbor airports were closed but are in the process of reopening, and I believe they have already reopened at the time of this press briefing. In Abaco, Leonard Thompson International and Treasure Key airports were also impacted and were reopened. Other family airports, including San Andres, Mangrove Key, resumed operations shortly after the storm. Clinics operated on their generators where needed, and we are pleased to report that there were no major medical emergencies. With the all clear now issued, we are transitioning into recovery mode. Damage assessments will begin focusing first on Abaco and Grand Bahama as the hardest impacted islands. As outlined in the cabinet briefing, relief supplies were pre-positioned in advance of the storm and included for food and water supplies to sustained displaced households, emergency tarpaulin and shelter materials for roofing and structural damage, portable generators and fuel reserves to maintain essential services during the outages, medical kits and sanitization supplies for clinics and community use. These items were mobilized immediately to support impacted islands. Public health monitoring will now remain in effect for those flood-activated areas to guard against any secondary risks, such as mosquito-borne illnesses. In summary, Tropical Storm Imelda tested our systems and our people, and both rose to the occasion. The disaster alert worked, the evacuations were successful, rescue requests were swiftly met, and utility and recovery crews are hard at work even now. These results are possible because of the proactive and prepared coordination efforts as we executed in relation to Hurricane Imelda. On behalf of the DRM Authority, I thank the National Disaster Emergency Operations Center, all emergency support functions and partner agencies, our law enforcement and uniformed services, the Family Island administrators who in particular worked tirelessly around the clock, along with their disaster risk management consultative committees, and most importantly, the people of the Bahamas for their cooperation and resilience. Together we have demonstrated that with preparedness, partnership, and proactive action, we can face these hazards and keep our nation safe. Thank you.
Thank you for that thorough update, MD Sargent, and I will now turn it over to our media colleagues for questions.
There's still a lot of flooding across some communities here in the capital, severe flooding at that. I know yesterday it was mentioned that supplies were being given to those residents, but are you able to give an update in terms of if people are reaching them, because a lot of them are saying that they're not being reached, probably because of the flooding, and any additional help that could go to those individuals?
MD will answer that question.
So Ministry of Works, along with the DRM Authority, have stepped up their response efforts. I know today we will be going in several communities. There are several flooding and pumping trucks that are on the road that Ministry of Works has engaged to bring some relief. We are also going to take some relief as well when we do our walkabouts to assess any further damage. And so efforts are ongoing. Additionally, Water and Sewage has also joined in the effort in terms of assistance to the residents of those affected areas. Go ahead.
Take some relief. What does that mean tangibly when you say take some relief? What are you?
So we primarily, that's tarpaulin. That has been a major request from a lot of residents. We've received a number of calls. We've distributed before the storm a number of tarpaulin. As it relates to the flooding, that has to recede along with the efforts of Ministry of Works and the pumping of that. A part of the challenge is in most densely populated areas, there's no runoff or the ability to discard that additional water that's on the ground. But the teams are working. We are trying to find some creative solutions to move the water quickly so that people can return to normalcy.
How soon would damage assessment teams be dispatched to the islands?
On Thursday, we will be taking a team into both islands.
And what are some of the, I guess, measures in place to support the mental health of residents over there in Grand Bahama who've been traumatized and affected 6 years after hurricane?
Yes, that's something definitely that we have discussed with the Ministry of Health and our partners at the Public Hospitals Authority to support the efforts. Psychosocial support is something that is one of the lessons learned out of Hurricane Dorian, and definitely we will look to provide some support to those residents who still suffer from the trauma of Hurricane Dorian as it relates to this storm.
Minister London, you mentioned the Water Resource Corporation assisting as it relates to flooding. How exactly are they lending assistance? Because again, we spoke to some residents who are stuck in their homes and they haven't really seen outside trucks pulling up, but pulling off.
Well, what they would see is trucks pulling up and sucking up the water and then pulling off. As MD Sargent said, we don't have the ability to let the water off in that area because they don't have the drainage facilities. So they have to actually take the water out of that area and dispose of it somewhere else. The Water and Sewage is assisting by using some of our big pumps, and we're at now in the area of the Saunders Beach area out west, and that's where we're disposing of the majority of the water that's in the White Grove area as well as the Chippenham area and that Propel track area. That's what we're dealing with right now.
In the aftermath of the storm, in terms of the level of flooding that we've seen, what can we see be done moving forward to try to mitigate this, I guess, from a government standpoint?
Yes.
To try to prevent this from happening in the event we see another storm that may be worse than the one we saw over the weekend?
Well, one thing what we can't do is prevent the rain from coming. But we are in this, in right now, we're dealing with Ministry of Works as well as Water and Sewage. We're in talks with a lot of contractors to try and come up with a permanent solution in some of the areas. I know part of what was already done was seen in the downtown area. That's why most of the water receded already. So we're actually going to enhance that by trying to push the water in a certain direction and have it stored. That's where the water will evaporate a lot more faster. But we're going to do that throughout the entire country. That's where we use that as a model initially.
And how often will that be maintained? Because I know a lot of residents are complaining that in the drainage system, I guess the maintenance of the drains, the cleaning of the drains has not been happening, I guess, frequently.
Well, I
How
could
often will that
I could tell you the Ministry of Works has a robust system where they've been maintaining the drains throughout the island, but they have to appreciate where the water table is in Nassau. Any rain would bring water. It's how fast the water recedes. And we just had a tropical storm pass through. That's why the water is settling, and that's why we realize in some areas the water wouldn't recede, so we have to speed it up by sending in pump trucks and having it moved and disposed elsewhere. Okay.
If there are no more questions, I'll bring this press conference to a close. Thank you, everybody, for your remarks and for your questions. And thank you to the Bahamian people for your compliance and your support throughout this system. Thank you, everyone, and be safe.
At Centerville, I'm LaDawn Davis. This is ZMS.